What's up, little beans? How you all doing today? It's good to see you again. Let me just get comfortable on my little sofa here. So it's been a really long time since I made a proper video, and if you didn't see my last kind of mini update video, I recommend you go check that out, because I kind of explain where I've been and what I've been up to, just a little smidge. But the kind of main reason I haven't made any content for the past 6 months or so, I think it's actually even a little bit more, is because on top of having a lot of kind of life transitions going on, I just mentally haven't been in the best place. And although I want to share the ups and downs with you, I always want at the end of that to be something that can bring positivity and helpfulness, and I just didn't have that. So instead of trying to fake it, I decided to just take a break. During that time where I was having a really bad mental health episode, I actually really struggled to reach out for help, and I got to the point where I couldn't manage my own difficulties by myself. But because I had such a difficult time knowing who to turn to and where to turn and what I could do, what was available to me, etc., etc., I actually just spiraled. And honestly, I'm learning a lot now about how the kind of reluctance to ask for help and seek help can actually be a trauma response, but that is a different video. Today I actually wanted to talk about services that you can use and access if you are feeling very low in mood, particularly if you're getting to the point of feeling suicidal, very hopeless, struggling to get out of bed, etc., etc. If it's really interfering with your kind of ability to do daily life, I want to talk about services that are available to you. So to caveat, I know this is the longest introduction ever, but a lot of the services I will be talking about today are free and or affordable. However, I know that what I consider affordable is completely subjective, and whilst I'm absolutely not in any way particularly affluent, I do know that it is a privilege to be able to potentially afford £40 a month, £80 a month, etc., etc. So what I consider affordable might not be viable for some. I have got another video up about accessible forms of healthcare through mobile apps, so check that out. I'm probably going to link it above if you really don't have any budget to spare, and I will be trying to throw in a mixture of stuff that is free, but some of these things are not entirely free. So the first service I want to talk about today is called The Listening Place. The Listening Place is a charity that provides ongoing mental health support for people who suffer with chronic suicidal thoughts. I have used this service before, and I am currently using this service. They are completely free and accessible for anyone over the age of 18. The things I really appreciate about this service is that they are completely judgmental free. They provide you with someone who will listen to you and help you to kind of understand and process your own thoughts and feelings. These people are not mental health professionals, but they are highly trained volunteers. You can self-refer to this service, or you can be referred through other charities or the NHS like I was. They don't ask you for any money at all. The service usually runs for about 3 months per person, so it's quite long-term support. I currently speak to someone from their team every 2 weeks for 50 minutes at a time. So I find this service really useful. It gives me something to look forward to, and it helps me to process my thoughts and feelings around my life. Sometimes talking about suicidal thoughts with a friend or family member can be very difficult because I find myself having to center their feelings and their emotions when I'm talking about my own feelings. I don't want to upset anyone, trigger anyone, or distress anyone, so I find myself not able to express how I really feel. On top of that, friends and family are not necessarily trained volunteers, so there are things that they may say in response to your feelings that can be quite triggering and detrimental. On top of that, it's completely confidential, which I really appreciate. So the second service I want to talk today about is called Together Cafes, and they operate in several East London locations throughout the boroughs of Tower Hamlets and Newham. What they do is they provide, similarly to the listening place, trained volunteers who will help you process and reduce feelings of anxiety. I also use this service currently as well. What they actually helped me to do was to put together a support plan and a risk plan for when I am feeling very, very low in mood. It's been really, really useful to have someone to speak to on a weekly basis who will help me process my feelings, thoughts and emotions. They mainly talk about anxiety and depression, and they actually referred me to the listening place when I disclosed that I was feeling suicidal. So they do have their limitations on what they can provide. They will also refer you to other services if they think they were appropriate. You can refer yourself to the Together Cafes or be referred by a GP or a mental health service through the NHS. You have to be 18 or above to access this resource. The only thing that I found a little bit difficult with the Together Cafes is that they are not confidential. If you disclose anything that they deem to be crime related, around abuse, or anything that they think puts you or has put you in danger, they will report it to the police, which I found very, very anxiety inducing. It isn't just about things that are going on currently. If you report anything from the past or you mention anything from the past, they then have to report that. That is part of their policy, and they are very transparent about that being part of their policy. But I wanted to add that to this video because it was an element that I found very anxiety inducing, and it did lead to me having to speak to the police, which I found very, very triggering. It wasn't a particularly bad situation. I spoke to the police and they respected my wishes to not take anything further. However, that initial meeting did make me feel very, very anxious. I still do use the service though. I really enjoy having my short sessions where I talk to a volunteer, and I think in the long term I will probably end the session soon because I have other support available to me now that I'm feeling like I don't necessarily need it anymore. But initially I was referred to the Together Cafes while I was waiting to have a mental health assessment through the NHS as part of my risk support plan, who then referred me to the listening place. So it is a really good stepping stone in making sure that you are getting the support that you need. And once again, it is totally 100% free. But the final service that I want to talk to you about today is called Togetherall, and this service is not entirely free, although you pay what you can afford, which I think is really good. This service is provided to me for free through my company that I work for, and so I'm not actually sure what the prices are, but I have had a dig around the website and I know that they do means tested services, which means you can access based on what you can afford. I think mental health services taking this idea and running with it in terms of making people pay only what they can afford is really opening up the doors to make mental health really more accessible. I don't know what the process for having those means tested are. I'm not sure if they ask you to provide proof because, as I mentioned before, this service is provided to me through my workplace. But if I do find out more, I will add a little bit more detail to the description bar below. Now, Togetherall is an online community support service. The people who run that service are trained mental health professionals. However, it is no guarantee that you'll be able to speak to the same person all the time. So it isn't a replacement for mental health therapists or psychiatric services. The thing that I really like about Togetherall is that you can create kind of topics and discussions where other people can weigh in. It really helps with that feeling of not feeling alone in your mental health struggles. The other thing that I really appreciate about Togetherall is that it's a 24/7 service. I actually reached out to them on New Year's Day when I was feeling at my very, very lowest, and they put me in touch with a number of different services to help me manage, including asking permission to reach out to my GP, which then led to me becoming a priority case for getting my mental health needs looked at, which I was struggling to do for many, many months prior because of the really long waiting list. Because of their support and help, I was able to have a mental health assessment, get some antidepressants, I was referred to the Listening Place and Together cafes, all because they were there to support me through their community messaging services. It is run by clinical experts, and they have access to things like courses and resources that can help you to manage your own anxiety and depression. The principles behind Togetherall is to make sure that mental health becomes more and more accessible without discrimination, which I can really appreciate. The steps that they took to support me actually led to me being able to access other forms of support that have now brought me to where I am today, where I feel like I'm in a lot more control and a lot more self-sufficient over my own life. So I definitely recommend that service, but I just want to add one more time that it isn't entirely free. The other thing that I really appreciate about Togetherall is that it is an anonymous service. You don't use your real name on there. You don't know anyone who's on there. There's no identifiable information of yours on there. It is confidential, and they won't pass on any of your information to any other parties unless you give them express permission to do so. Even when I was really at my lowest and they wanted to reach out to my GP on my behalf, they asked my expressed and written permission to do so prior. They also reached out to my private healthcare insurer on my behalf as well to ask them if there's anything they could do or provide for me after me personally having a difficult time accessing support myself, and that did really help. There are a lot more services that I've discovered that I want to talk about, but I don't want this video to get long, so I'll be doing more videos like this in the future. If you enjoyed it or you found it useful, please do leave a comment and a like below. And if you want to join this community and support and to see it grow, then do subscribe and click the notification bell. I'll be back with more good mental health and self-care content very, very soon. But thank you so much for sitting through this video. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye! Say bye-bye, Boba. Bye-bye.